Your love keeps lifting me, keeps on lifting me, keeps lifting me higher, higher. Well, good morning, and welcome to the third annual Gene Beilecki Aviation Camp. I have Al Daniels here from the Connecticut chapter of the Black Pilots of America. Before he talks, I'm going to show you a short video. It talks a little bit about the organization.
I was coming back from a horse show with my son in 1980, and I saw this sign that said airplane rides, 5 cents a pound. I was much lighter then, so I could afford it.
I was 14 years old. A family friend took me out to an airport, and I just never forgot that experience.
For the first time, Negro aviation cadets were being groomed to fly warplanes of a unit which was then a unit in thought only, the 99th Pursuit Squadron.
You do have a compass rose here, okay? The session director. You do have a climb and attitude indicator here, and this is an altitude indicator.
Our chapter is named for John Green. He was a tremendous pioneer in aviation at a time when it was extremely difficult for black people to have an opportunity to fly. He not only flew an airplane, but he was the first black individual to own and operate an airfield in America.
Like most kids, I used to put together airplane models, but never in my mind did I think that I would fly an airplane, because I didn't see anybody flying airplanes that looked like me. But the guy that wound up being the pilot of this Cessna 172, he had on a pair of bib overalls, he had on a plaid shirt, and he looked like he had just gotten off a tractor. And he actually had, because the tractor was sitting down at the end of the runway. I looked at this guy and I said, if he can do it, I can do it. And I've been flying ever since.
These men were pioneers of a venture so new that you who stand here before me now, after 3 years, may still be considered forerunners in the movement which has given you a place in the fighting men of the sky.
If we want to look at how bad the discrimination was, let's look at the Tuskegee Airmen. The whole Tuskegee Airmen experiment was not an experiment to show that blacks could fly airplanes or that blacks should serve in the military and in the elite organization. It was put in place to show that we did not have the mental capacity or the physical aptitude to be able to handle complex machinery like an airplane. Well, clearly, they were wrong.
Actually, here in America, the number of airline pilots that are captains are very, very small, really minuscule. I think it is about 2%, I believe. So even here, there are not a great many pilots who are practicing as professionals for airlines.
Well, Gus McLeod was the first person to fly an open cockpit airplane to the North Pole. That is the airplane that Gus McLeod flew to the North Pole.
Janet Bragg. We have a chapter of the Black Pilots of America, which is actually named after Janet Bragg, again, another pioneer in aviation and a female.
When we look at the way things are today, prejudice is still here today, but there's knowledge within black Americans as well as white Americans as well as Hispanic Americans that you can do anything that you want to do given the opportunity and given the proper training. And we look at the pioneers in black aviation as being a cornerstone to show that that can happen.
This is a picture of John Green as he's working on one of the aircraft engines. That's a huge monster there. The red plane there that's banking, just banking left. Wonderful. You got to be in an airplane to do that. That is a really wonderful experience. That is a cool experience. That's what that is.
We'll be pushing back from the gate here in a few minutes. Flying time 2 hours 58 minutes en route. Looks like flight plan time is about 2 hours and 10 minutes, so we ought to be there way early.
All right. So at this point, first I want to introduce is Al Daniels from the Connecticut chapter of the Black Pilots of America is going to speak to us. Al?
Thank you. Thank you.
That's actually the first time I've ever seen that video. As you can see, John Green that's one of our chapters in the DC area. The reason that Bob asked me to come by is to let you know we're here. He told me a bit about the group, and he was right on point that it is a lower melanin level than me, about my age, maybe a little older. And first thing I want you to let you know that that's all right. No matter what the program was, this is the United States of America. So let's get the big elephants out of the way so we can talk and be people. We all know what happened. We all know why things are the way they are. So it's up to people like you, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that here in a minute, to let people like me know it's all right. Come on over. This is a good place to be. Aviation, how did I get there? Well, let me show you some of the hurdles I jumped over to get here. Gonna do a little survey. Everybody that can and will that's over 50 years old, stand up. If you were raised in a single income, not necessarily single parent, but single income, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. If you were raised in a single income family, stay standing. If you have 4 or more siblings, I'm number 2 of 7, stay standing. If you had parents that only spoke the truth, the words that came out of your parents' mouth were the gospel, you did not question what mom and dad said, stay standing. Then you are just like me, and you made it. So I know I can make it too. Some of the things that my parents told me on my mind, because I knew that I wanted to fly when I was very young. I knew. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. I just Googled the actual distance. I used to tell people, oh yeah, I was 3 or 4 miles. I was less than 2 miles from Detroit City Airport. Grew up. That is where I lived my entire life, from the day I was born until I was 18 years old, or 18 and a half when I joined the Navy and came here. But that's another story. Drove by it at least once a week. Got a job on the west side of town that made me drive by it 5 days a week. But it was over that 10-foot cyclone fence. And with 7 kids, plus 2 adults, and sometimes grandma, we didn't fly anywhere. Some of the things my parents told me. What's the cure for mumps? Anybody? We all know that now. For me, it was sardine sandwiches and the sardine oil rubbed on my face. I told that to some of my friends in high school, and they said, you were abused as a child. They told me I was too tall to play football, one of my other passions. And they told me that if you don't have 20/20 vision, you'll never be a pilot, so don't even worry about aviation. That was the starting point of why it took me until I was in my early 40s before I decided to become a pilot. But it was people like you who made that possible for me. Fast forward 2004, 2003, 2004. 2002, I went to work for Norwich Public Utilities. And he was actually supposed to be here, but he couldn't make it today. My then boss and I were riding through town, and he was a pilot. And we talked about being a pilot, talked about it. said, one day, he did exactly what you saw in the video. He said, hey, you want to go for a ride? I said, sure. Drove down to Groton Airport and did the most miraculous thing. We flew over to Block Island. Over water in that little Cherokee, probably a Warrior, as I think back. That was my introduction into private flying. Since then, I have learned some very, very important things. Now, thoroughly fit, a couple years later, I make a plan, I make a decision, I'm going to fly. So I actually did my training over at Danielson Airport, which means I've taken off and landed. In fact, I did my first solo right here because you got a lot bigger runway over here than you do over at Danielson. So you got a little more cushion for those, little too much or not enough power. So this was a beautiful spot to learn how to fly. We're very fortunate in New England that we have a lot of nice airports that you can come into and some challenging airports that help keep your skills honed in this area. But now, let's fast forward. Now I'm a pilot. Now I'm out here. And like, again, our speakers on the video, I don't see a lot of people that look like me. But that's all right. I'm grown. I'm, in my 40s. I understand America. I know where we are. So, first thing I do is I go on the internet, and that's how I found the Black Pilots of America. My first chapter that I belong to was actually a New Jersey chapter, Albert E. Forsyth, named after a Caribbean gentleman who came up north after becoming a doctor. He lived in New Jersey and did some cross-country flying with Chief Anderson of the Tuskegee Airmen, back and forth across the country. The first black pilots to do a cross-country flight. They flew into Canada, back when you could do that without a whole lot of paperwork. They flew down to South America. So again, aviation pioneers were all among us. The actual name of my chapter is the Flight Officer Connie Napier chapter. Connie Napier was a Tuskegee Airman, lived outside of Hartford, born and raised in Hartford, lived outside of Hartford when I met him. Just passed away a couple of years ago. So one of our other chapters, Roscoe Draper, another Tuskegee Airman, still lives just outside of Philadelphia. So there's still a few of us among you. When I realized, after my training, because again, I went through the training and everybody was happy to see me. I've flown up through Massachusetts into Vermont. Every airport I've landed at, everything's been fine. Nobody ever told me I couldn't stay. Nobody ever told me I can't get gas here. Nobody ever said, what are you doing flying? So, give yourselves a hand that you have always made aviation welcoming to anybody who comes through the door. But this is when I knew that it just took me, it just took us to make this happen. Still not a plane owner. I rented a plane down in Lone Oak, Arkansas. Flew it down to our annual fly-in in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Stayed for the Thursday night events. But I have family that still lives in Clarksdale, Mississippi. And I said, well, my wife was with me. I said, baby, we got an airplane. Let's go for a ride. And that was first thing. I said, if we had to drive this through these back roads and zigging and zagging and winding and all, following rivers, and it would take us all day to get there. 1 hour later, we land in Clarksdale, Mississippi. I'm still fairly new to flying, so I'm not sure of all the ins and outs. But I know if you land at somebody's airport, you gotta give them a few bucks to tie up and, you'll be good for the night. I come into town, I land the plane. He says, first thing the operator of the FBO says, he says, there's thunderstorms coming in tonight. He says, is there any place I can, cover the plane, keep it safe? He said, well, let me look. Oh, we got room in the hangar. I says, well, thank you. And he says to me, as a New England guy, I said, so what do I owe you? He said, it's a thunderstorm. Put the plane in there. It'll be there when you come and get it in the morning. I said, okay. No extra charge. The next thing I'm going to do, hey, got the number for the, taxi so I can go get a hotel room. And he says, car's over there. Just put some gas in it. When you're going, back and forth to the airport for training, you don't know about, I saw the car there, but I didn't know did anything. I thought it was one of the guys who lived there. I did not know what the courtesy car was all about. He threw me the keys to, in this case, a pretty nice Crown Victoria. Drove it into town, filled it up with gas, brought it back the next day. Nobody questioned me at the airport. No, this is the deep South. Nobody was wondering what I was all about. I was a pilot. I flew an airplane into that airport. I was part of the family. And you guys took care of me. This is about, as you go out and begin to look around and understand, those are some of the hurdles you're going to have to overcome. You're going to have to get some of these thoughts because of how people in my generation were brought up. Understand what Bob is telling you, that you're looking for a youth. Well, you got to get past their parents and their grandparents and the stories that they've been told about aviation. You're going to, and on the funding side, and this is something that my organization continues to struggle with, as most organizations do. It's all good to go after and have a lot of kids running around your organization, but they don't have any money. You need people like you that have jobs and a couple dollars in their pocket to support and bring that on. And favorite saying of my wife, many hands make small work. A room this size for pennies could definitely put somebody through an aviation school. The basic training. Not without, most of us without breaking a sweat. Again, if we all gave a little bit, we can make that kind of thing happen. What I'm going to close with is just let you know is that you're already doing all the right things. The doors are open. You are asking, you've got the right mindset. You know what's going to happen. Again, something else Bob said that I want to make sure you understand. It's just, you're providing an opportunity. Don't feel bad if they don't take it and turn it into an aviation career. My organization has over 400 pilot members, close to 600 if you include our associate members. There are 4 multi-generational families in that group. So we can't convince our kids to join us. I don't know how that works in here. Apparently it's working pretty well in here, since the Beilecki things that they got a whole big group of it travels through the family. It's hard. Kids got a lot of other things that they could do with a couple of grand if you put it in their hand. So you are giving somebody that wants to do it an opportunity to try something new. But it's all that's all you're doing, is you're giving them an opportunity to try something new, giving them an insight into something that they may never have seen before. And if you don't do it, if I don't do it, if we don't do it, nobody else is. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ralph. Very nicely said, my friend.